Before we bring out Nigel Gilbert, I want to talk just a second about Europe. Now, you probably all experienced this firsthand, but what we found is that Europe is the #1 fastest growing region in programmatic around the world. We've seen our business across Europe grow by 140% in the past year. Many markets have more than doubled. Almost every market has more than doubled in the past year, which is absolutely incredible. We haven't seen this anywhere else. And so I want to reiterate to you that AppNexus is still 100% committed to every market in Europe. This is our home. We have 80 employees here. We understand the distinct differences between markets, and we are still all in on Europe. Now, here to talk more about exactly what's happening across Europe is Nigel Gilbert, our VP of Sales for EMEA.
All right, just to kick it off then, I want to ask, how many of you guys have been following this Google story with the European Court of Justice the last few days? Anyone? That's half the people read the news. That's reassuring. For those of you that don't read the news, that's cool. I can give you the news. I've got it with me. Essentially what's happened is 40,000 Europeans have expressed concern about their personal data being listed in search results. So they've now been asking for that data to be removed. And what I wanted to give you was just a quote that we found from the chief executive of said business, which was a couple of days ago in the Financial Times. Let me give you this. It says, now, we're trying now to be more European. And think about it maybe more from a European context. Sounds like a good idea. The chief executive said, a very significant amount of time is going to be spent in Europe. Sounds like a great plan, right? You can already see our execs are over from the US, Pat's having a good time, touring around St. Paul's. Brian's even using the word mobile again, which is great. I mean, he still seems to go between the two, but it's really, really good to see. Well, look, we've taken markets really seriously in Europe since we got here, certainly since I've been with the business in Europe, which is coming on to 3 years now. So I wanted to give you guys a little bit of context based on what Brian told you right at the beginning. These are wonderful techniques, performance marketplaces, auction marketplaces, direct deals, and so on. This is the way that we feel the growth is going to deliver into programmatic. But as we all know, we're here in Europe, sunny, wonderful Europe, and things are different here. So it's useful for us to be able to observe what those differences really are. So, since we are actually here bathing in the warm sunshine of London, let's start with the UK. So, 63 million people live here. It's probably not for the food, unfortunately. It could be for the weather when it's like this. We've got an estimated digital display market here of around $3 billion, something like £2 billion in real money. But if we go across, I've got to say it, if we go across La Manche to France, 66 million people there. That almost certainly is for the food. More people than there are here. But they've got a estimated $1 billion digital display market there. I mean, that's a massive difference. But yet there's the same, slightly more people. What if we hop across to Germany? 81 million people living in Germany. Beautiful place. There's some fantastic parts of Germany. We've got a lot of Germans here today. Digital display market is something like $2 billion. So again, these are huge differences. You put these three markets together, you've got something like 70 to 75% of the European display market just across those three. We looked at other indicators that could give us an idea of why this is the case. Actually, internet population is usually one of those. But I can tell you it's really similar. I think the smallest internet population was possibly even the UK, something like 48 million, going as high as 58 million in somewhere like Germany. So that can't be it. So what is it that's defining these behaviors? What is it that's making these markets so different that means that we should be able to consider how we can approach it and take these things into consideration? Well, I want to talk a bit about consumer behavior, because ultimately advertising is about influencing behavior. That's really what we're doing. Our job is to make sure that we can influence what somebody's thinking at any given moment and ideally get them to buy, interact, engage with a brand. So let's bring it back to somewhere like the UK. A word that's often used here is fragmentation. We have a fragmented market in the UK, fragmented consumer behavior. Fragmentation is frankly a polite way of saying we don't really know what we're doing. We'll buy anything here. We're incredibly easily influenced. We're not loyal to particular media channels. to our mortgages, our holidays, our cars. We switch things all the time. I'm slightly ashamed to say it, but I have to say it leads to a huge DR, direct response opportunity, in a market where people behave like that. We have low barriers to entry. We have no language barrier. We're happy to trade in various currencies. And that makes it very open, makes it much more straightforward to launch businesses as well. Now, that being said, if you go to somewhere like France and Germany, the behavior is somewhat different. I'm not suggesting that it's not fragmented, but it's more consistent. You know, people are slightly more straightforward to find. They're less sporadic with their behavior. They're much more brand loyal in these places. Brand advertising is much more prevalent. The biggest advertisers you'll find in the German market will be car manufacturers. L'Oréal in France, Procter & Gamble again in Germany. These are the companies and these are the consumers that want to engage with brands. It's sort of less offer-led, it's less switching, less fragmented. Now, obviously, that leads to the size of the DR markets. In the UK, the IAB will tell you that the DR market is something like 50%, 40 to 50% of all digital display. I mean, that's huge, that's immense. Programmatic in the UK is anywhere around 600, 700 million, depending on who you talk to. The reason that's interesting is because that's something like 60 to 70% of all DR display being traded programmatically already. So then that starts to give you an understanding of where the growth can come from. But it's all based around how consumers are behaving. This is essentially what's going to define markets. So, looking at where this growth is going to come from over the next, I think we're looking at something like 3 years. Brian talked a lot about the overall themes, all of programmatic, all of direct response globally. But let's look at it on a market-by-market level. Excuse me. This is fast-forwarding to 2017. It's no surprise that the Netherlands is at 60%. This is the penetration of programmatic inside the digital display markets. We've always known that about the Netherlands. From what I understand, it's already at something like 45, 50%. There's a lot of Dutch guys here today, so hopefully they can corroborate that for me. But what's interesting is you look at the UK, that's going to be almost as high in 3 years. You look at places like France and Germany, again, you're seeing quite stark differences because they're looking for different things from programmatic. We know that it can offer performance, we know that it can offer ways of aggregating inventory, but also there's operational benefits. Some of these markets have got different ways of engaging with smartphones. Broadband penetration is significantly higher in France. Smartphone penetration is twice as high in France as it is in any other European market. You can actually use your telephone on the metro, at the underground in France. I can't even use my phone in Norfolk when I'm with the in-laws. I mean, this is a problem, right? I think, no, actually, sometimes my mother-in-law's doing it deliberately. But yeah, so it's understanding how can we get to these levels of growth, right? These are big markets, big opportunities, and these are really big numbers. So we didn't want to just leave it there. A lot of data and a lot of research companies will tell you how big markets are going to be. They will tell you what sort of penetration you can see, IDC. We've seen a lot of eMarketer reports on that front too. But in order to really get to the point of where programmatic's going to arrive, in order to really understand what techniques we can implement as a group of people, we wanted to go one step further. So AppNexus is not a market research company. We're an ad technology company. So we wanted to partner with people who are strong market research companies. In this case, IAB Europe and WARC. WARC is the World Advertising Research Center. They specialize very much in agencies, planner, buyers, marketers. And of course, the IAB being a pan-European digital organization. And we've undertaken a huge study in the last, let's say, 2 to 3 months with some incredibly high levels and numbers of respondents. Companies like IDC eMarketer will engage 30, 40, 50 companies, maybe. Between WARC, IAB, and AppNexus, we've engaged over 620 respondents across 7 different markets. And you can see the diverse nature of the people that have been responding. And what we're trying to get to here is really understanding the why and the how. Are we going to arrive at those numbers in 2017? I've got no doubt that it will happen. But how are we going to get there? Maybe how can we get there faster? And more to the point, how can we all take full advantage of it? That was really the goal. So the good news is we're going to share the copy of this report with everybody here. Quite possibly, I think, at the end of the show. I'm having somebody nodding at me from the balcony. So you're all going to be able to share in this research. But let's just look at a couple of the key insights that came out of it first. One of the things that people always want to understand is the key drivers per market. What is it that's pushing programmatic in the UK or in France or in Germany or in other places? And actually, one of the most prevalent in the UK was improved targeting. I don't think that's a surprise when we consider the consumer behavior and the nature of the individual in the UK that we were talking about before. You need to be able to target people. We're sort of hard to find here. It makes for a wonderful set of solutions and problems that programmatic can help with. But how are you going to find that British guy who's frankly buying anything all the time? So improved targeting was one of the biggest drivers, actually overall, but in the UK in particular. In France, personalization was the most important thing. You can see it down there. These are the overall stats, but 33% of overall. And in Germany, the #1 reason for using programmatic was improved ability to react in real time. I would translate that as operational efficiency, frankly. Getting better optimization, better efficiency gains, APIing to business infrastructures and so on. Being able to just improve the way you work. So again, to some extent, that speaks to that 33% stat you saw earlier. Okay. Last one I wanted to share is we've got a small discrepancy in terms of arriving at those numbers in 2017, which what this chart will show you is while media buying agencies, a handful of publishers, obviously slightly less, but very few marketers on this side of the chart here really understand what it is we're doing. What are these benefits? Why should we be using programmatic? Why is my agency telling me this? Why are these sellers trying to bring these offers to me? And between us all, we need to understand the kind of language these folks need to hear, the kind of tools that are going to make a difference to them in order to drive these numbers forward. So again, we think viewability is a wonderful opportunity, as we've spoken about in the first half, but these are the kind of metrics that marketers really relate to. And these are the kind of techniques that are going to help us drive to those numbers more quickly. Okay, good. I want to leave you with 3 takeaways before we pass on to the next session. The first one will be download and use this report. It's wonderful insights, fantastic, really granular level techniques that everybody here can start to implement, hopefully on a market by market level. Think about them as different countries. Don't think about them all as one. We know that. You can't just pop your inventory into a console in Germany and make it cheap and expect people to buy it. It's not what people are trying to do there. Take these things seriously. Understand these nuances. That's the second point. Lastly, differentiate. We also know that not everybody's going to be able to take the same offering to all of the same people. Some people will use viewability more. Some people will use different types of data more. Some people will specialize in different types of content, like Benjamin earlier. But again, make sure you understand what yours is. And again, make sure you can understand exactly how to realize all of these benefits. All right. Thank you very much.